This is the IBJ podcast for the week of December 23rd, 2019. I'm Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. A little more than a week from now, Auld Lang Syne will signal the end of the year, as well as the swan song of a 35-year-old nightlife institution. Ike Jonesy's, located 4 blocks south of Monument Circle and a block from Union Station, will close for good after a last hurrah on New Year's Eve. Now, downtown Indianapolis was a very different place back in 1984. There were only a handful of buildings higher than 20 stories. There was no Circle Center. Mass Ave was a dicey proposition at best. The Hoosier Dome had just debuted. Union Station had not yet been renovated as what we were then calling a festival marketplace. But at street level, in a former hotel built in 1924, a young married couple opened a bar and grill. Ike Jonesy are the nicknames of owners Rick Eichholtz and his wife Linda, and they took a risk in the city still known at the time as Indianapolis, and a downtown that for the most part rolled up the welcome mats at 6 p.m. Ike Jonesy's maintained its retro diner and dance hall vibe while downtown underwent a renaissance, and Rick would like to keep it going, but the owner of the building has plans to turn it back into a hotel. The Eichholtzes have agreed to leave on what they describe as good terms. They also have agreed not to disclose the details, and the owner of the building has declined to respond to IBJ's request for comment. Last week, I sat at one corner of the bar with Rick Eichholtz, who's now 62, to talk about the Night Spot's long tenure, and as they're singing in the production of Hamilton, now on Mass Ave, learning how to say goodbye. You're going to hear some background noise, which I think is fine for the institution. The audio might get a little wonky in a couple places, but as you'll hear, Rick has a good voice for radio and a lot of great stories. Here's our conversation. Rick, thanks so much for making time for us today.
Well, I appreciate you coming to Ike Jonesy's.
So the listeners are going to pick up a little bit of the Ike Jonesy sound behind us here, which is, I think, appropriate for the end of Ike Jonesy's. Tell us exactly where we are sitting.
We're at the corner of the bar, and we were at 17 West Jackson Place.
Okay. And you said this is the place where you always sit?
This is my seat.
Are you also taking money at the
Buyers
door?
beware. But no, it's I usually don't sit when the place is packed. I give this up.
So we're conducting this interview on December the 17th. Ike Jonesy's is going to close in 2 weeks, essentially.
Yes, sir.
Your patrons have had some time to digest the news. So were you here last weekend? Were you talking to everybody?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, not till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I rarely do that anymore.
So what's the most common thing you're hearing from patrons now that they know?
That we hate it. They say it's an institution. Pass it on to somebody else. And I tell them that we can't. It's bound and determined to be a 12-story hotel.
In terms of their memories of the place, do people continually bring up kind of the same few stories? Are there a few things that you're always hearing?
No. There's just it's endless. It's just endless from just our locals, and that doesn't even include conventions that come back year after year after year and have been regulars, and like the coaches' combine, regulars that come in and see me, just hang out. The firefighters convention, I've got a group that, my God, they came to my daughter's wedding. PRI guys, I actually had another bar called the Race Club, and the PRI guys came over and grabbed me and told me, they got some great bar stools over there made out of aluminum alloy rims. And I went to my first PRI show, walked in there and bought 30 bar stools. So, yeah. So the relationship has been great.
What has this been like for you? Like over the weekend, when people want to kind of spill their heart to you about how they feel, does that take a toll on you?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the lease was written to get me out of here when I was to be 75 years old. And I always figured I'm going to work till I'm 75. And whatever I'd have left then, I'll live on that and Social Security or whatever. But this is way early. I would like to be a part of the hotel, but I don't fit into their plans. We've been through a lot of discussions, some of them good, some of them bad, but now the talking's over.
Is there anything you can tell us about the circumstances of the agreement?
Absolutely not. I'm sworn to keep my big mouth shut about financial arrangements.
But you have agreed to leave. You're not being tossed out.
I've agreed to leave, and we're leaving on good terms. I'm just lucky that I was able to be here for 36 years.
Yeah. Could have you fought it if you wanted to just keep fighting it?
I don't know if I would win. Well, you just got to face it. It's their building. So I am a tenant.
But you did have a lease up to...
Yeah, I have a lease up to 2033, but it has some idiosyncrasies that happen, different things. There's escalating clauses that come on. I don't know what's going to happen to me, tomorrow. But knowing that in the future rents can go up some pretty good prices, and I'm ready to not deal with that.
You mentioned when we were speaking earlier that you also have, some physical problems or things you're trying to kind of get through. Can you give us a sense of what that is?
Possibly because I also bounced in my own places. I've got 10 vertebrae that don't have any disc in them. I have got a shoulder that my doctor won't even really tell me what's the matter with it because it's that trashed. Now, that happened in football at DePaul. And then I've got a hip that's bone on bone and a knee that's bone on bone.
Wow.
And we're not even going to talk about these.
So you're holding up your hands,
and they're
a little gnarly.
Crippled. They're a little gnarly.
Yeah. What is this is such a huge question. I'm not even sure I want to ask it right now. But what is your favorite memory? Do you have something that you keep coming back to?
For the first years, one of the things that I was doing, we had a Carburation Day party when the track was doing it on Thursdays, and we were the first people to get an outdoor street permit. Me and my manager actually helped the city create the first event permits. And we would close the whole street and take over part of that parking lot and have headliner bands. And that would bring about 15,000 people. Mm-hmm. And that was annual all the way up till about 1999, maybe right at 2000. Oh, no, 2000. Yeah, 2000 was our last one. And they were incredible.
That's a pretty good run.
Yeah, it's a heck of a run.
Yeah, so a lot of folks, I'm sure, are asking, why don't you open a new place?
The expense is different now, and rents are incredibly astronomical. And then I always hear that some of these buildings that are spending a lot of money on buildings for apartments or whatever are giving bars and restaurants. You come put a bar in here and no rent. If you hear me out there, I would like one of those deals immediately, or own my own building. I'm tired of being a tenant, really.
But is that something you're pursuing, or just thinking about
looking
right now?
for a building?
Yeah,
not really. This building was $135,000 sold in 1984. I'm not going to disclose what the price that my new landlord bought it for, but wow.
Yeah. I can safely say that it's more than $2 million.
It's yes, it is.
For somebody who wants to open a place like this today, what's your number one piece of advice?
First of all, enjoy the general public. That is everything. For them to come to your place, feel welcome, and have a good time. One of our sayings is, if it ain't fun, I don't do it, and that's serious.
And you're still enjoying this?
I'm still enjoying it.
Okay, now let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
The IBJ Podcast is brought to you by Krieg DeVault, a trusted and dynamic law firm representing a wide variety of local, regional, and national clients. Committed to each other and to every client, Krieg DeVault prides itself on integrity, professionalism, respect, and excellence. Financial institutions, global manufacturers, national healthcare providers, and successful organizations of all sizes and market focus rely on Krieg DeVault to create innovative and successful business solutions. Connect today at www.kriegdevault.com.
All right, we're back with the IBJ Podcast and our conversation this week with Rick Eichholtz, owner of Ike Jonesy's. Give me your background here in Indianapolis. You grew up in the city?
Yeah, I went to St. Matthews. I was over on around where Cathedral High School is now. St. Matthews for 8 years, and then I went to Bishop Chatard High School, played football there, wrestled, and threw the shot put. Then I went to DePaul University, and because of my weight problem, they always make me wrestle and throw the shot put, but I really only want to play football. In the off seasons, I would do wrestling and throw the shot. after DePaul and kind of during DePaul. I got married my senior year to my wife, Jonesy. I had separated my shoulders, so I was done with football. And we got married over Thanksgiving weekend, 2 weeks before my finals. She was working for the state of Indiana, which was a good job that my dad got for her, and God love him. And then I was working at Geist Reservoirs selling waterfront lots. I was a real estate agent. I was doing that while I was a senior in college. And it was like shooting fish in a barrel, because it's right when it first opened. It was 1979, 1978. That was incredible money for a young kid. And then my father, he got cancer. He was 47 years old. You know, he was everything to me. I'm the middle child, but he was a heck of a football player for Butler University and was drafted to the Green Bay Packers. And he lasted 3 years. When I told him that I was, and I came up a little shy, about 20 grand shy, and I went to the operating room, or the post-op or whatever, wherever they put him. I told him that I was building a bar, and I was in the process of building a bar. And he called me numerous different ignorant, buffoonish names. And No Kid of Mine came out, and I can't believe you're even thinking about this. And my thoughts, though, were that, he always talked about places, joint. Look at that joint. That's a great going joint. Say, look at that restaurant. It's packed. People everywhere. Hey, they're all, it's a good family owns that place. And, and I'd hear that stuff as a kid, and it came up in my mind, if my dad was going to die of cancer and suffer from cancer, I want to be with him. Make a long story short, he got a pass to come out of the hospital. I'm about 20, probably 25 grand shy of getting this first bar I was building, and I did it without him knowing it. But now I popped up shy, and he comes, I see him, my mom is driving him, and I see him his cancer was in his head, and he had a turban on. And as if I looked really closely, he had his robe on. I could see in the top pocket of his robe his checkbook. When he came in, he goes, "What the heck are you doing? Are you out of your mind?" And he walked around and said, "What's this over here?" I said, "Dad, that's where the big TV goes. Sports, games, every Saturday, and we didn't have Sundays then." I said, Monday Night Football. And I think he shook his head up and down. And he says, "What's over here?" Dad, that's another big TV. 2 big TVs? Isn't that a bit much? And I said, "Well, Dad, there's different games on. There's ABC, there's CBS, there's NBC. And he goes, "Oh, okay." He goes, "What's back here?" So this is where the kitchen's going to be. I've got most of the stuff. I said, we're going to make those great big tenderloins that you like. We're going to do all of the fried food that you love and serve it in baskets." And as he was shaking his head up and down, he was pulling his checkbook out. And then he found out that we had bought an Earth Station satellite receiver, a dish. And I had taken some of his money, and back then it was 10 grand. He said, "Oh, you're the dumbest kid I've ever had." He goes, "I can't believe you spent $10,000 on an antenna." And it was just about a month after that, the Hearns-Leonard fight came on. And since I had the dish, they weren't scrambling back then. The place was packed. And he looked at me and says, "This is the smartest thing I've ever seen."
Right on. That's great.
And he never missed a day till the day died.
What was that place?
It was 52nd Street Pub at 52nd and Allisonville.
Okay.
When he passed away, I was done. I was going to go back to real estate, and I sold the bar. One of my dad's best friends, Bob Bournes, was going to develop the Union Station. And when Dad was alive, he even said, "Bob, let's get him out here and let's get him downtown with me in this festival marketplace that we're going to build." So I went down and talked to Bob and said, I'm obviously, I got to do something from now and between now and when the station opens. If I'm going in, I talked Bob into buying this building because it was going to be 2 more years. And
right.
That
Yeah,
was
it didn't open again until about 86, right?
Yeah, April of 86. And I had 4 places in there. So he bought the building, and he was to sell it back to me in a year. Well, that didn't happen. He said he likes this building.
Oh, Bob.
Yeah, so I was out. So, yeah, that's when we got going. And the first game was not a Colts game. The first game in the Hoosier Dome was Notre Dame Purdue. And we had our grand opening on the same day as the Notre Dame Purdue game. Didn't have any entertainment, but the place was packed.
We got a little ahead of ourselves. So let's go back real quick to 1983.
Okay.
Downtown Indianapolis. The AUL building, the city's second skyscraper, is still under construction. No Circle Center. Hoosier Dome is still under construction. Union Station hasn't been renovated yet. Convention Center is still, kind of a small little thing. Pacers are in the middle of a 26-win season. For folks who weren't around at that time, what was downtown Indianapolis like?
It was frightening. This building that I'm in was like I said, all indigent mental patients that were in 93 rooms upstairs. I don't know why somebody decided to house them here, but that's what was going on. This area was Skid Row. And literally, from 83 into the 84 when the Hoosier Dome opened, it was a rough time. I wasn't here yet because I opened up in August of 84, but I was out here on building and looking and doing all the things, and it was a little frightening. But there was something that was that I saw there, a little bit of a light, and that was really the newspaper reporters, the news people, the weather people on all the stations. They were stuck downtown and they needed someplace to go also. Not to mention the police when they're off duty at the end of a shift, the fire department when they're off duty and get out of the bunkhouse and they're able to come out. So I targeted that. But the biggest surprise of all was when January came and the legislature met. And they came over in droves. So I would get the whole House of Representatives and the whole state Senate and all their lobbying buddies were all here, and things were flowing.
Well, and that's right. I mean, Elmo was still here. St. Elmo was right around the corner.
It was us and St. Elmo's basically.
But that was basically it on this quadrant of downtown.
Yeah, it really was. La Scala's. Davey Page and Pete Page owned La Scala's. It was still open. Then they flipped it around and turned it into a disco called Don't Ask in 86 when I opened up sports, I opened up sports in 85, but when I had the dance thing going on, they turned their beautiful Italian restaurant into a dance club.
Wow. Do you remember Locomotions?
Oh, yeah.
I was
Ben
bar back
Rogers.
there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was
Well,
freshman year of college.
I owned Indianapolis Nights.
Oh, is that right? Right.
Yeah.
On. It was still kind of the Wild West.
Yeah. And I had Bartender's Steak Place across the food court.
You had what?
Bartender's Steak Place across the food court.
Oh, wow. So you really had a lot of different businesses at that time.
And in the basement of the head house, I had Uncle Slug's famous Irish Tavern. And up in the food court, I had a place called Deep Fat Ricky's. And we served tenderloins, onion rings, and fried ice cream. And our motto was, if it can't be cooked in deep fat, it ain't fit to eat.
I mean, that's a lot of stuff to keep track of.
It was. So I had Sports Bar going across the street where Tiki Bob's is now. So I had 6 going all at once, and I believe I was, by that time, 27.
Why was Ike Jonesy's the only one to survive?
Union Station had its own problem. 2 years into it, I sold everything off in 2 years. A lot of people just closed. I was able to sell all of my establishments. We didn't figure, and Bob couldn't know how to figure how much common area maintenance fees to charge. And the maintenance of it and keeping it clean was that costly that the common area maintenance fees became larger than our rents. Then after that first summer from April till September, when we lost the children, it went away.
When you say you lost the children?
Well, when everybody went back to school.
Oh, sure. Right.
Yeah. And the high school kids, there was all sorts of different pinball places and all, places for young people to eat too.
And this is all in the Union Station?
In the Union Station, yes. But out here, everything was going great. It was still just jammed up.
So Colts start playing. Was that significant? That's still like 8 weeks out of the year, right?
Yeah, it was immediate. Pulled the whole city together. We had a common thing right there. Yes, our Pacers were good, and yes, just the years before, they made great runs, but football's it's a different animal. We did very well with football.
Besides Colts, was there any other kind of development in that renaissance of downtown that really made a difference for you?
The only thing I can think of is that people started putting their hands into things, and things actually got a little bit worse. Back when all of this was coming to life, there was 1 million little government committees that were put together. Some of them were quasi-private, public, and all sorts of different little names, and they would sometimes hinder business. So that was difficult to see.
So this place is just packed to the gills with nostalgic stuff. I think these tables you've had, since the beginning, right? These pinball?
Yep.
The tables that were kind of built on the husks of pinball machines.
Yep.
And it just says nostalgic without necessarily saying any particular time period, but it's like a lot of rock and roll stuff. So what's going to happen to all this stuff?
I've hired Earls from Earl's Auction, and he has photographed everything that's in the place. My bouncers know that everything stays on the walls, and he has sent out information, and apparently he's gotten 300,000 responses from the internet. in town, just our notice on Facebook, or Ike and Jonesy's Facebook page, we got 38,700 visits, which is a record for us. We're going to sell everything.
Wow.
And that's tough. I mean, that was my wife said, no, just let it go. And because I had looking up storage places and all that stuff, and I was going to stuff in a hole and maybe try to redo it. But I won't. If I redo something, it'll be probably with partners and sell it out that way.
Is there anything in particular you're going to take with you?
Well, I have a couple of things that I've got to take. Right there, I told you my grandpa, Cleon Reynolds, when I told you about they worked for the, see that plaque with the man's face on it under the TV?
Oh, sure, yeah. It says his name on it.
He was, for 40 years, he was the fire chief. Besides being a high school basketball coach, he was fire chief at the Motor Speedway for 45 years. And those are just some of his badges that I've placed. And I have to give those back to my aunt, Cleon's daughter, my aunt. Right below that, my dad's doctor and dear friend was a pretty good old Republican, and my dad was a Democrat, but his son-in-law gave those to me on loan. So those are on loan, and there's some great campaign buttons up there.
Oh, yeah. It's a framed collection of campaign buttons. So on the 31st, I guess you're going to have to say a couple of words to everybody. Have you thought about that?
Not really. I didn't think about this, and I'm just saying a couple words.
Well, I really appreciate it. This has been great. My thanks again to Rick Eichholtz. Folks, here's a quick programming note for you. The podcast is going to plow right through the holidays. Next Monday, December 30th, we'll have our special Year in Review episode, and we'll have a ton to talk about, including the sale of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which still feels weird to say, the sudden end of the $1.4 billion waterside project, the advent of the Red Line, and the deals to fund a $360 million renovation of Bankers Life Fieldhouse, not to mention construction of a $150 million soccer stadium. Now, you will recall that we talked about all of these on the IBJ podcast this year, so feel free to go back into the archives and bone up. You also, if you wish, can do extensive research at IBJ.com, provided you are a subscriber, for full and unfettered access to all of IBJ's award-winning content, including our weekly paper on handy newsprint. Just hit the subscribe button. Thanks again for making time during the holiday week for the podcast, which is edited by Leslie Weidenbender. I'm Mason King, and we'll be back again on December 30th.